Zoomer Radio, original greatest hits with Janis Joplin, me and Bobby McGee. Gordon Lightfoot does a nice version of that song, too. We have a special guest in studio. When you think of TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, of course, you think of the big 10-day festival in September where all the A-list movie stars and directors come into town and premiere films. But TIFF is much more than that. In fact, it is a year-round concern. And part of it includes a retrospective of Martin Scorsese films. And film critic and artistic director of TIFF, Cameron Bailey, has dropped by to tell us a little about that. Hello, Cameron.
Hello, Cameron. Welcome.
Thanks for coming by.
Me.
Martin Scorsese Retrospective. How many films would that include now?
He's made over 20 feature films, fiction films, but he's also made a number of documentaries as well. We're showing all of his fiction films going all the way back to the early 1970s, right up to, in fact, the most recent one, The Irishman, which we're also doing an exclusive run of at TIFF by Lightbox.
How would he? And why Martin Scorsese? I mean, there's no question he's a great film director and screenwriter. Any particular reason you decided at this time to focus on him?
I love his movies. Yeah. Let's start there. But he's also, I think, one of the most exciting filmmakers who's ever come along in the history of movies. You think of movies like Goodfellas, like Raging Bull, The Departed. There's just an energy to his filmmaking. You know, the way that he moves the camera, the editing of his films, the way he uses music, Rolling Stones and other great musicians, Robbie Robertson often working on the scores of his films. There's just a passion and energy, and he tells stories about complex characters who are flawed. I mean, a lot of his best-known characters are gangsters, but he makes you feel for them somehow.
Well, you know, that being said, let's talk a bit about what's happening on Friday with The Irishman. Give us an overview on what that movie's about.
So this is the story of the man who may have killed Jimmy Hoffa. And in the movie, he's played by Robert Deniro. He is an Irishman, but he's working with largely the Italian mob in New York from going back for 40 years up to around the 70s and 80s. Jimmy Hoffa is played in the movie by Al Pacino. So you've got Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, you've got Harvey Keitel, Joe Pesci. It's just an incredible cast, an epic story. And it sums up not just, you know, the gangster milieu, but how you live with your actions. I think it's relevant to anybody. You don't have to have killed somebody to relate to this movie.
Well, that's good to know. Boy, that is really good to know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you mentioned The Irishman and Raging Bull and Goodfellas and The Departed, and that's a certain genre of film that he's very good at. But he really is much more diverse than that. And I'm thinking of the documentary he did about George Harrison in particular, Living in a Material World, I think
that's
it's called.
Right, yeah.
That is outstanding filmmaking. And he's very good at that as well.
Martin Scorsese is a student of the movies, a student of pop cultural history, so he's fascinated by artists like George Harrison, by the Rolling Stones, about whom he's also made a documentary. He has made these remarkable spiritual films as well, films like Silence and Kundun and The Last Temptation of Christ, which was very controversial when it first came out, with Willem Dafoe playing Jesus Christ in a story that was seen as sacrilegious. But you watch it now, and it's really an attempt to get inside the mind and the heart of a figure from history who was both divine and human.
Now, Cameron, Martin was here just recently, correct? You had a chance to have a one-on-one with him?
Yes.
What does he, as a man, first of all, what does he think of Toronto? What does he think of TIFF and the whole thing?
You know, we gave a tribute to Martin Scorsese in 1982, I think it was. So he was here back in the very early days of our festival when we were very small, and that is part of what helped put TIFF on the map. And he of course, is involved in film preservation and film history, and we, of course, have our Cinematheque and our film reference library, and we work with his own film foundation to help preserve films that are at risk of just disappearing from the record. So he loves what we do. We connect on that level a lot, and he's a very intense guy. You know, he speaks very fast, and he's got a lot to say, and he just knows so much about movies. It's remarkable to just sit and listen to him.
Let's talk about the TIFF Bell Lightbox as a venue for watching films. A lot of folks may not realize that you can actually get down there all year round and and check out films.
That's right. We're open every day of the year showing movies, and it's both a combination of brand new movies like The Irishman, which is just coming out, and you can see them in what I think are really the best conditions for watching a movie in the whole country. Our cinemas have great projection, great sound. I think the best popcorn in the city as well, if I may say so myself. But also classic movies as well. So we're running a series like the Scorsese Retrospective, which really give you the chance to watch these great classic films on the big screen like they were meant to be seen.
One more. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just. There's like 5 cinemas at TIFF?
That's right, yes.
Wonderful. And it's been around since 2010.
Correct,
wow.
yeah.
And I'm just reading some of the big names. I haven't had the pleasure of going to TIFF, and I will now, trust me, Cameron. But some wonderful exhibits have been there. David Cronenberg, Tim Burton, Stanley Kubrick. We're talking big names here.
That's right. Yeah. No, we have a gallery there, and we've done great exhibits in the past, and we've got all kinds of events, not just showing movies, but talks, lectures, opportunities to really just dig your teeth into just what movies are and what they can offer to people.
One more question. Favorite Martin Scorsese film?
Come on, Cameron.
I know.
We're putting you on the
I've been
spot.
watching them again recently, and I have to say that does it have to be just one?
2 or 3 is fine.
Goodfellas really stands up. It is a masterpiece, and if you haven't seen that on the big screen, I would highly recommend that. But I also love After Hours, one of the lesser-known films from the 1980s. He made it, after he'd made New York, New York, and it's just a small film, one night in New York City with a guy who's just having endless frustrations trying to get to where he wants to go, and it's just a great comedy, actually.
All right.
And The Irishman opens Friday. The Martin Scorsese film retrospective it gets underway soon?
November 22nd.
November 22nd. Nice. Cameron, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
for having me.
Cameron Bailey, film critic and artistic director of TIFF. Check that out. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Wow.
You probably have a reason you can't get sick this flu season. Protect yourself and your loved ones. Get your flu shot at Rexall today. Visit Rexall.ca for details.